With Final Fantasy XIV's first expansion has come loads of new content, including new jobs, new abilities, and of course, new dungeons. In addition to level 60 cap dungeons, the number of which I'm sure will increase with coming updates, there are new leveling dungeons at 51 through 59. These have been added to the already large list of dungeons in the leveling roulette, which no longer is purely dungeons below level 50. Because of that, more and more players will be pulled into these on a daily basis, and with that in mind, here's a guide to the Dusk Vigil in Final Fantasy XIV Heavensward. The Dusk Vigil is most players' first foray into the dungeons Heavensward provides. While not directly in your path along the storyline, it is a requirement in a questline to get one of the ethereal currents in Coerthas Central Highlands, so you'll probably want to do it as soon as possible. It's unlockable by completing the side quest For All the Nights to Come, which is locked behind a story quest sounding out the amphitheater. In what is definitely the snowiest dungeon since Snowcloak, the Dusk Vigil was a fortress from before the Calamity, whose garrison refused to withdraw once the Western Highlands became the frozen tundra that it is today. The ascent through its ice-covered passages is simply put, gorgeous, but as expected, full of dangerous enemies. Most of the enemies you come across before the first boss are standard groups of enemies you've seen before, with nothing to worry about. However, every once in a while, a snowy wall will crumble and a huge beast will emerge. From what I've seen, this puppy hits hard for a trash mob, so make sure your tank is awake enough to pull him off of your other party members. Our tank disconnected right as one popped out, and he destroyed our poor little lawful ninja in a few hits. Past the first of these monstrosities, you'll encounter the first boss, a massive mammoth. While the mammoth is an intimidating sight, almost all of his abilities are unavoidable by at least one player, meaning the pressure will mostly be on the healer here to keep everyone alive through the worst of it. His attacks are rear, an AoE centering on the mammoth, growing outwards from the mammoth. This cannon should be avoided. Prehistoric Trumpet is another AoE, but hits everyone regardless of positioning. The worst of it is a stun move he performs on a targeted player, followed immediately by either Woolly Inspiration or Rout. Both of these attacks can be avoided by other players, but will hit the stunned player no matter what. I've heard that Rout, the charge attack, can be mitigated by having a player stand between the stunned player and the mammoth, but none of my party members have ever been nice enough to try this for me. For the most part, as long as the healer is paying attention, you shouldn't have any trouble with this one. Next, you begin making your way deeper into the Dusk Vigil, and discover what's happened to the garrison that remain. Only part of note I can mention is to walk slowly through the hall with rooms to either side. Enemies will slowly spawn to attack, and if you sprint through like we did in this video, it's easy to become overwhelmed once you realize what's happening. The next boss, Sir Helmeric, isn't very complicated either. He can do an AoE across the entire room, except to those standing near him. Watch for it and run to the boss when you see it. Other than that, the biggest concern is the ads he spawns. Be sure to take them down quickly, as they can be a growing problem if left to their own devices. The caster ads can also buff themselves and the boss, so try to keep him away from them if you can. Moving on towards the final boss, there are a few interesting areas of note. Out on the stairs, looking out across the mountain range, you can be afflicted by the frostbite or frozen nipples or whatever it's called, but I still recommend fighting the first two enemies here. During the run I filmed, our tank kept going towards the safety of the first room, which has 3 ice sprites in it that must also be killed. While we survived, and might have done better if I'd attacked the outer enemies instead of first trying to take down the sprites, it was tougher a fight than it had to be. This leads us to the final boss, which I honestly thought was a really fun fight and a great sign that dungeons in Heavensward could be exciting while still being manageable. Ophinicus, an enormous hippogriff, will use a variety of attacks such as a straight line AoE that can be avoided. Of more concern is the whirling Gale attack, or Gale, which sucks players in from the outer edges. This damages the player after being thrown in the air and provides a wind damage debuff, making the boss's attack stronger on that player until the end of the fight. If these get stacked, it can be quite difficult to survive certain attacks, such as Winds of Winter, which is an arena-wide AoE centered on the boss. To avoid both of these, you can stand behind piles of rubble, which are there at both the start of the fight and fall from the ceiling throughout. Do not get hit by them as they fall, it hurts. During the tornado move that sucks players in, just make sure you're standing behind a pile. You can avoid getting sucked in entirely. When he's about to do Winds of Winter, make sure rubble is between you and the hippogriff, and you'll be fine. This will, however, destroy all the rubble piles, but new ones will drop later. Standing next to them full time, however, can be dangerous, as his move Freefall will destroy any rubble piles near the players he lands on. Overall, the fight's not too difficult as long as everyone follows the rubble rules, and it's generally a good time. Well, that was the Dusk Vigil. Hope it was helpful, and if you're beating it for the first time, enjoy taking to the skies in the Western Highlands. Leave in the comments your thoughts on the dungeon and any tips you might have for getting past some of the trickier spots that I might have missed. As always, like the video if you liked it, and please subscribe for more. This is my first attempt at a dungeon guide, so definitely let me know if it's something you'd like to see more of. Thanks for watching.